Welcome to Football Gameplan's FCS Kickoff, presented by the Connecticut School of Broadcasting. I'm Emory Hunt, the czar of the playbook, and the 2017 college football season is rapidly approaching, and we are here to get you ready for the season as we preview the Northeast Conference. Here's a look at what we have in store for you guys in this season's preview. We'll take a look at some of the incoming talent in our recruiting roundup. We'll hand out some superlatives, including our preseason all-conference team in our conference preseason awards segment. And we will also take an early look at some of the 2018 NFL draft prospects that you want to keep an eye on this season. But first, let's kick things off by taking you around the Northeast Conference as we go into our 4-minute offense. The Northeast Conference has enjoyed a high level of parity over the last 5 seasons, which just speaks to the strength of the conference from top to bottom. We've seen multiple champions and co-champions since 2012, and the 2017 season looks to be shaping up once again to be that way. The hope is that this year, the FCS playoffs recognize the strength of the conference by making this a 2-bid league come selection time. The Central Connecticut State Blue Devils got a big-time playmaker back into the fold this year in senior cornerback Javon Elmore. Elmore was one of the top players on the roster and was an NFL prospect entering the 2016 season before missing the entire year to focus on academics. He's now back and ready to regain his role as one of the conference's best covermen. When you believe in the strength of your conference, you're not afraid to step up and challenge teams across the country. The Northeast Conference out-of-conference schedule has some heavyweights on it this year, like Youngstown State, Liberty, Fordham, North Dakota State, Syracuse, and New Hampshire, amongst others. This is a big opportunity to earn strength of schedule points when the playoff selection time comes. Also, it's a great barometer for these teams to see where they are as a football squad. Finally, the Bryant University Bulldogs have a new head coach in James Perry. If the name sounds familiar to you, it should, as he was a prolific quarterback at Brown University in the late 90s, leading the Bears to the Ivy title while also becoming a finalist for the Walter Payton Award. He's been a highly successful offensive coordinator at Princeton as well the last 7 seasons and is known for his ability to maximize the talent at his disposal. His Princeton offenses were must-see TV each and every Saturday, and there's no doubt in my mind that he'll have the Bulldogs offense rolling as well. In college football, you're only as good as your ability to recruit and develop the players that you bring into your program. And this past signing day, there was no shortage of future impact players added to the conference. So let's hit the recruiting trail to see how well these teams recruited this past offseason. First order of business for new head coach James Perry is to get more athletic along the offensive line. Stephen Olive out of Chelmsford, Massachusetts at 6'6", 240 definitely fits that description. He has a frame that can easily max out to about 280 to 285 and not lose any movement skills. He's one of the 5 offensive linemen the Bulldogs brought in on signing day. Central Connecticut State landed a disruptive force along the line of scrimmage in Tully Irvin. Irvin has the functional strength and length that you look for from your edge rushers. He's raw from a technical standpoint, so expect his development to start there, but you have to be excited about where he'll be by the time he's a junior. Jalen Booker is a JUCO transfer that should be an instant impact type of a guy for the Duquesne Dukes. Booker is versatile enough to play with his hand on or off the ground. The 6'3", 255-pound prospect from Lackawanna Junior College has a chance to be an all-conference player by season's end. In my opinion, he's that good. Robert Morris gets a solid tight end prospect in Dalton Elliott. The 6'4", 240-pound tight end is more of your traditional inline tight end that's a very good blocker and dependable receiver. Now, depending on how quickly he can get up to speed with handling the speed and strength of college football, he could see the field pretty soon for the Colonials. The Sacred Heart Pioneers always seem to find these excellent run and chase linebackers, and Chris Outerbridge is the next one to keep an eye on. He takes great angles to the football and doesn't waste any movements. He also has above average change of direction skills and is a very fluid athlete. I think he'll be the type to terrorize opposing offenses in all 3 facets versus the run, blitzing, and also in pass coverage. The St. Francis Red Flash have a need at the quarterback position, and incoming freshman Jason Brown has a great chance to win that starting job. He is in the mold of last year's starter Zach Dreyer, but has much more athleticism, which would really give the Red Flash offense a different dynamic than what we saw in 2016. The Wagner Seahawks receiving core looks like skyscrapers out there on the perimeter. They love the tall, athletic perimeter players that can fly. And they nabbed another one in Joshua DeCambre from nearby Curtis High School in Staten Island. The 6'4" DeCambre has the ability to play outside the numbers or inside as a bigger slot receiver. Either way, the Seahawks add a big-time weapon to their passing game that can win above the rim. This conference is filled with talented players across the board, and what better way to illustrate that than to unveil our 2017 preseason all-conference team. Quarterback Alex Thompson of Wagner is coming off a very good season, tossing 16 touchdowns to only 5 interceptions. The 6'5", 225-pound QB got better as the season went on and is looking to continue to build on that in 2017. The receiving core on this all-conference team is extremely impressive, with Thompson's teammate John Williams, St. Francis's big playmaker Cameron Lewis, the speedy Joey Fields, and H-back Hunter Tout of Bryant. Offensive lineman Ben Hughes out of Duquesne has a bright future ahead of him and does an excellent job in pass pro and also in the running game. Speaking of the Duquesne running game, sophomore tailback A.J. Hines was nothing short of spectacular last season. The 5'11", 220-pound runner gained nearly 1,300 yards at 5.4 yards a carry and 13 rushing touchdowns. That level of production ended up winning him the Jerry Rice Award, which is given to the top freshman in the FCS. Defensively, Randall Laguerre out of Central Connecticut State has been productive each season he's been a Blue Devil. Last year, the 6'2", 235-pound senior finished the season with 116 tackles, 5.5 TFLs, and 2 sacks. Defensive lineman Andy Strutman of Duquesne made a living behind the opposing line of scrimmage last year with 10 TFLs and 4.5 sacks, and also a total of 49 tackles. Current San Francisco 49er Lorenzo Jerome made a ton of headlines last season for the St. Francis Red Flash, and rightfully so, but it also overshadowed how talented they were as a group. Malik Duncan played some really good ball last year, breaking up 14 passes on the season and picking off another 2. He and Delando Boyd returned to give St. Francis a really strong secondary. Looking at the preseason special team all-conference performers, and Adam Check of Robert Morris had an impressive sophomore campaign last season, averaging 37 yards a punt, getting excellent hang time on those punts as he forced 37 fair catches last year and down 22 inside the 20-yard line. Let's take a look at some of the conference's best by position in our conference superlative segment. The Wagner Seahawks boast impressive depth at the quarterback position. Alex Thompson will be excellent this season for Wagner, and they have a strong backup in Luke Massey that showed promise while playing for the JV squad 2 seasons ago. The Duquesne Dukes own the best backfield in the NEC. They are led by 2016 Jerry Rice Award winner A.J. Hines, but returning juniors P.J. Fullmore and Riley Redmond can start for many teams across the FCS and are very talented in their own right. As the Dukes break in a new quarterback this year, they'll have to lean on the talented depth that they have in the backfield early on. I'm a big fan of the receiving core of Central Connecticut State. Joey Fields, Jose Garcia, Alex Jamel, along with talented tight end KJ Smith, give Central Connecticut State the ability to spread the field and find the best individual matchups. Smith, in my opinion, is one that could garner some All-American accolades this season. With Duquesne returning 4 out of the 5 starters along the offensive line, with 2 being named to our preseason all-conference team, you have to give the Dukes the best offensive line title in the NEC. This is a group led by Ben Hughes that completely owned the line of scrimmage last season and are looking to do the same in 2017. The best defensive line goes to the Dukes as well. Andy Strutman and Zach Blystone give the Dukes 2 tremendous players in their 3-4 defense. Senior Rob Mara was valuable and productive last year in a reserve role, finishing with 19 tackles and 2 TFLs. This year, he steps in as the 3rd starter up front, so look for those numbers to go way up. Central Connecticut State has a really good group of linebackers with Randall Laguerre, Kenneth Keene, and Jamel Jimerson. Keene stepped up big time last year with his play, finishing 2nd on the squad in tackles with 80 and 1st on the team in TFLs with 10. We have a tie for the best secondary in the NEC between St. Francis and Central Connecticut State, and we spoke about the St. Francis Red Flash secondary a few minutes ago and the fact that they can lose a guy of the caliber of Lorenzo Jerome and still boast talented starters like Malik Duncan and Delando Boyd, But keep an eye on senior corner Jalen Wells, who's coming off a terrific playoff game against Villanova. The 6'1", 180-pound senior finished last year with 12 pass breakups and 3 interceptions. The Blue Devils add Javon Elmore back to a secondary that returns a healthy Najee Brown, a cornerback in Darren Horner, and 2 excellent safeties in Tamir Hinton and Gerard Cann. Needless to say that opposing offenses will find it tough to throw the ball against Central Connecticut State this season. Robert Morris gets my vote for the best special teams in the Northeast Conference. We already talked about their excellent punter, Adam Check, but don't sleep on the talented returnmen the Colonials have also. Both Warren Robinson and Dante Satcher do a great job of creating short fields for their offense to work with. Satcher averaged 33 yards per kickoff return last year, bringing 2 back for touchdowns, while Robinson averaged 9.7 yards per punt return, taking 1 back to the house.
I think the FCS gives a student athlete a chance to really develop in the classroom and on the field. And I don't think there's anything that gets in the way of the development of the student athlete. You know, whereas in sometimes other conferences, other levels of play, I think there's some things that could sway a student athlete in a wrong direction here or there. But I think at the FCS level, I think it's all about the student athlete. I think it's all about his development in the classroom and also on the playing field. And it really it keeps your values and your goals right in front of you. And I think there's less things that are going to take you away from those things.
In the 2017 NFL Draft this past April, we saw 15 prospects from the FCS get their names called, and many more have signed free agent deals in the NFL and also in the CFL. And this is shaping up to be yet another strong class in the football championship subdivision. And here are a few guys that you want to keep an eye on for the 2018 NFL Draft. Marcus Bagley out of St. Francis has the look of an NFL-type back, and in my opinion has NFL-type game as well. Last year, Bagley ran for nearly 900 yards, averaging 4.3 yards a carry. Javon Elmore's 2015 season was impressive as he broke up 16 passes and picked off another 2. He has 7 interceptions so far in his career. Bryant Hunter-Tout is more of an H-back type that can carry the ball as a traditional fullback, but can also create matchup problems offensively in the passing game. So look for him to showcase all of that versatility this year in new head coach James Perry's offense. Don't let the size fool you. Joey Fields is a big play threat waiting to happen. The 5'8", 170-pound wideout really stepped up his game last year as he earned a starting role within this offense by hauling 46 receptions for 732 yards with 6 touchdowns. Fields has a knack for slipping past defenders and does an excellent job in tracking the football.
It's different, you know. It's I think it's a little bit smaller, obviously, than the FBS. I mean, you're going to get more attention to detail. I mean, you could go to a bigger school, you know, Ohio State, Florida State, USC, and you could be one of those, you know, 90 players that they have on scholarship. But, you know, how much are you going to play? You know, how much attention to detail? You know, are you going to be able to graduate in 4 years? Those are things, obviously, I didn't work at one of those schools, but those are some of the questions you got to ask yourself before you step foot on a campus or make decisions. You come to the FCS, and I think, number one, if you're that good, you're going to play. And they're going to find kids. I mean, you look at the second pick in the NFL draft this year, the quarterback from Dakota State, and you go look at any one of those kids. I think any one of those kids could play at an FBS school. And they just happen to be in an FCS school who is getting looked at. They just won another national title. It is great football at this level. Maybe not as good as, you know, the Pac-10 or the Big 12 or, you know, the Big 10, one of those type of schools, but it is still outstanding college football where kids are getting recognized. They're still getting drafted in the NFL. They're going to graduate probably in 4 years, maybe not at a big, huge institution. And the biggest thing is I think that you'll get a chance for some more exposure being on the field and playing. You know, the bigger schools, you got to look at, you know, are you going to play and how soon? Or do you go to an FCS school and maybe you start for 4 years, you become an All-American and you get your chance, other than maybe playing 1 or 2 years in an BS school. But I think the FCS has done a great job promoting its football the last 3 years. nowadays with the social media and everything that goes on, it's taken off. And again, there's a lot of schools in our level right now, like North Dakota State. I bet you any one of those kids would be playing at a bigger school if they wanted to be, but they chose North Dakota State for a reason, and it was the right fit, and they got exposure, and they just won how many national championships, and the quarterback was the second pick in the NFL draft this year. So there is a chance. I don't think you have to go to a Division 1A school or an FCS school just make it to the NFL. The FCS has a lot of great teams and a lot of great players, and those kids do get looked at, and maybe they play like we said, instead of 1 year or 2 years at the FCS level, they're starting for all 4 years at the FBS level. You look at some of the schools in the Northeast this year, Harvard, Dartmouth, Villanova, New Hampshire. I mean, all those schools have been in Fordham. I mean, they've all been in the playoffs, and they've all had kids that got drafted or have played. They've had a successful, New Hampshire's been in the playoffs, I think, 11 years in a row or 12 years in a row, and Villanova, same thing. I mean, those are great schools academically. Those kids graduate in 4 years, and they played for 4 years and made a name for themselves and got themselves in position. So I think the FCS is doing a great job of what they're doing in terms of promoting our level of football, and I just hope it continues that way. And I think when kids step on some of those campuses and see what's in front of them, that they're a little shocked, and they can be very happy at a school like that as well.
We've now reached the part of the show where it's time to go more in depth on what we can expect within the conference in 2017. The Robert Morris Colonials have a bit of optimism heading into the season. I think when you look at what they bring to the table, you can also share in that optimism. The Colonials have a tremendous special teams unit and a defense led by star linebacker G. Stanley that can keep them in, and in some cases, win them some games. All eyes will be on the offensive side of the ball, more in particular the quarterback position. That's their biggest question heading into the season. Now, the Colonials played a lot of freshmen last year, and they took their lumps. And if they can find that consistency on the offensive side of the ball, they'll find more success in 2017. New head coach James Perry looks to breathe some new life into what has been a pretty solid Bryant program over the years. The biggest challenge for the new head coach will be on the offensive side of the ball, which falls right in line within his area of expertise. Both the offensive line and the quarterback position are question marks. Despite losing some talented options at receiver, the Bulldogs are still pretty solid on the perimeter. Defensively, they have been traditionally strong within the front seven, which looks to be the case once again this year, especially at linebacker. Now, Perry brought in an impressive recruiting class, and knowing how well he works his offense, look for things to straighten out about mid to late season, and that'll make things very exciting for 2018. Sacred Heart will once again be in the mix for the NEC crown. Offensively speaking, we'll see how much senior signal caller Kevin Duke has developed over the years as he's now the starter. He'll have the benefit of a great running game and a very good offensive line that can arguably be considered the best in the NEC, returning all 5 starters. Defensively, there are some big-time questions up front and within the linebacking core. We'll see how quickly they can get up to speed on the defensive side of the ball. Last year, they collapsed toward the end of the season, so maybe the new starters will be addition by subtraction. St. Francis looks strong this season once again. The biggest cause for concern is replacing quarterback Zach Dreyer. Whoever steps into the lineup will have the benefit of a strong receiving core and a nice stable of backs. Defensively, the back seven should be solid with the secondary leading the way. For the Red Flash to repeat as co-champs or even make a return trip to the playoffs, the slight questions along the line of scrimmage on both sides will have to be answered pretty quickly. St. Francis has a tough 3-game stretch early in the season that features Wagner, Towson, and Liberty in consecutive weeks. I think this may be the most talented team Central Connecticut State's head coach Pete Rosamondo has had in his 4 seasons. I like what the Blue Devils bring to the table on both sides of the ball. Look for a well-balanced offensive attack led by running back Cameron Nash and a defense that gets back Javon Elmore and Najee Brown in the secondary, teaming them up with sophomore Tajik Bailey to form an outstanding group of ball hawks. Coach Rosamondo's squad lost a lot of close games, a lot of one-possession games last season, and this year the hope is that that experience will yield positive results in 2017. They open up with 3 of the toughest games within the NEC as they travel to Syracuse, Youngstown State, while also hosting Fordham in between those two. So we'll learn pretty quickly how much this team has matured over the previous year. The Duquesne Dukes bring in Boise State transfer Tommy Stewart to take over the starting quarterback role on what looks to be a very talented football team. The biggest concern, in my opinion, for the Dukes isn't the breaking in of a new quarterback, it's the breaking in of new receivers on the perimeter. Losing Wayne Capers Jr. and Blair Roberts were huge losses, in my opinion. Defensively, I think they'll be just fine. We saw a healthy rotation of players last year, which is why they had so much success as a group. This year, experienced and talented backups step into starting roles, and the Dukes shouldn't miss a beat on defense, which will be key as they open up the season on August 31st against one of the best in the FCS in South Dakota State. I spoke with Wagner Seahawks head coach Jason Hotaling this past winter, and he couldn't wait to get spring football started because he was excited about his 2017 squad. The Seahawks should have one of the best offenses in the NEC, led by quarterback Alex Thompson and wide receiver John Williams. Their running game is strong, and defensively they do an excellent job of creating turnovers. Defensive back Jesse Flaherty led the team with 8 interceptions. The defensive line, in my opinion, will surprise a lot of people this year. Jordan Baskerville is the headliner, but keep an eye on defensive lineman Charbel DeBuyer, a 6'1", 330-pound defensive tackle that's ready to have a breakout season. The schedule sets up nicely for Wagner, and their second game of the year on the road against St. Francis will be a pivotal early season matchup. Be sure to follow us on all of our social media accounts, and if you want to check out our other FCS season previews, visit our website at footballgameplan.com/FCS Kickoff. Also on iTunes, subscribe to Football Game Plan Podcast, where you can find our FCS Opening Drive podcast.